Hello, everyone, and welcome to the National Environmental Health Association's Business and Industry Affiliates webinar, A Food Safety Mystery, a Story of Ghost Kitchens. I am Tracy Michelson from the McDonald's Restaurant Food Safety Team, and I will be your host for today's webinar. The focus of today's session will be around ghost kitchens, virtual brands, and other delivery-only based food service businesses. We have three fantastic panelists that will share their experiences and perspectives on this topic. The webinar is being co-hosted by the National Environmental Health Association. While our webinar has a food safety focus today, NEHA supports a vast array of environmental health sectors and provides countless benefits when you become a NEHA member. You can connect with your peers, network, and get access to valuable resources and educational materials. We stand by our environmental health professionals who work so diligently towards a healthy environment for all. If you are not already a member of NEHA, check out our website at neha.org to learn more. This webinar is also co-hosted by NEHA's Business and Industry Affiliate. Our goal is to develop partnerships and opportunities to collaborate with our regulatory and academic colleagues in order to band together and advance environmental health issues and initiatives. We are always looking for new members to participate and engage in our group, as well as provide direction and leadership. Board elections are coming up in July, hint, hint. And now for the usual webinar housekeeping items. Please note this session is being recorded. If you are not okay with this being recorded, you may disconnect at this time. We will be providing a question and answer session at the end, so please feel free to use the Q&A box to send those questions our way so our experts can help eliminate the mysteries that surround ghost kitchens. The chat box is great if you want to add your own comments or engage with the others in the audience, and our panelists may be asking some questions of their own for you to respond to there. We definitely want you to engage on this as well. All right. Okay, we will be starting with some introductions and definitions on the topic at hand, then roll into a discussion around some of the challenges that these pose, some food safety and operations perspectives to keep in mind when you're working with them, how the pandemic impacted this area, and what we can expect as we look forward. Now, without further ado, it is my pleasure to introduce you to today's panelists. Ashley Rondorf has 15 years of experience working in environmental health and food safety. Ashley joined the Chick-fil-A family in 2017 as a senior food safety specialist and leads the strategy for restaurant food safety operations that occur outside the traditional walls of the restaurant. This includes Chick-fil-A's team member delivery program, food trucks, third-party delivery, and delivery kitchens. Her work consists of providing these programs with consulting and solutions to lower the risk around the restaurant food safety 5, which is health and hygiene, contamination, cleaning and sanitation, pest management, and time temperature control. Prior to her joining Chick-fil-A, Ashley was an environmental health specialist with the Florida Department of Health in Collier County and Tri-County, and then also Tri-County Environmental Health Consortium in Green Lake, Wisconsin. She is a graduate of the University of Wisconsin, Green Bay, with a degree in political science and environmental policy. Galen Baxter has worked in the field of public health for 17 years. His work experiences have provided him with many opportunities to interact with different aspects of the community, from socioeconomically challenged neighborhoods all the way to legislative representatives, and from rural counties to densely populated metropolitan areas. He has firsthand experience with the different and unique challenges faced by each type of geographical region throughout the state of Georgia. In the last 15 years, he is directly involved in the food service program by means of regulatory oversight, outreach, training, consulting, interpretation, and application of the rules and regulations, outbreak investigation activities, and short and long-term planning of program goals and outcomes for the state of Georgia's food service program. He has served at all levels of the environmental health, from local inspector to state food service program director. He currently serves as the district environmental health director for Fulton County Public Health District. And lastly, we have MJ Schultz, who grew up in College Station, Texas, and lived there until he graduated from Texas A&M with a Bachelor of Science degree in agricultural engineering in 1994. He then studied at Oklahoma State University, where he received a master's degree in the same. After college, MJ moved to Jonesboro, Arkansas to work for Riceland Foods. In 2004, MJ joined Applebee's as manager of vendor quality assurance. While primarily focusing on fresh produce, seafood, and distribution, he also led the alignment of QA requirements following the merger of IHOP and Applebee's. MJ moved to Dallas in August of 2011 to work for Bricker International and is currently Senior Director of Quality and Food Safety. He leads the team that is responsible for supporting Chili's, Maggiano's, and It's Just Wings with programs for vendor, product quality and safety, animal welfare, restaurant food safety, pest control, health department engagement, and nutrition. All right, let's get this ghost party started. Don't forget, if you have questions for our panelists, please enter them in the Q&A box. So our first question is, what is a ghost kitchen? So we're going to hand it over to Galen to get us started. Galen, is there a difference between ghost kitchens, dark kitchens, and virtual kitchens?
Well, in my experience, I have heard all three of those terms used interchangeably, especially when I first became aware of the term ghost kitchen. I seem to hear those three terms, used interchangeably, like I said. But after kind of studying the different models that we have seen in Georgia, there appears to be a slight difference between a ghost kitchen. Now, this is all in my opinion and from my work and dealing with it. So I'm not sure how the industry, I'm looking forward to hearing you guys give your definitions. But ghost kitchen, to me, appears to be one particular type of model, whereas a virtual kitchen seems to be slightly different. And dark kitchen, I think that sort of covers the gamut for both. I believe that was sort of the original term used, and then ghost kitchen kind of evolved out of that, or vice versa. But what I have today here in this webinar are 4 different examples that I have seen here in the state of Georgia, and 3 of which fit within, the rules and regulations that we have here, and 1 model that does not. And that 1 model could be considered a dark kitchen. I don't know, that may be an example that, one of the other panelists could speak to. But just from my knowledge and experience, these examples here are what I want to show you. So on this first slide is the ghost kitchen example for where you would have different kitchens with different permit holders that are completely independent from one another and completely independent operations from each other, all under one roof. So it could be in one building. You may think of this almost like a food court in a mall. The only difference here would be the customers, order from an online platform, and the food is prepared in these kitchens, and either the customers would come pick them up, or a third-party delivery company would come pick them up. So this particular model fits well within the rules and regulations of the Georgia Food Code because they're all independent operations, independent kitchens, independent operators. So if you could go to the next slide for me, that would be great. So in this example, we have separate virtual brands operating under a single permit holder in one kitchen. So all of these different virtual brands belong to the same permit holder. They may be different types of foods, where you may have a virtual brand of sushi, you may have a virtual brand of hamburgers, you may have a virtual brand of tacos, and a virtual brand of wings. They're all different names, and the customers would not necessarily know that it's the same permit holder because it looks like different restaurants. But all of the food is prepared in one kitchen with the same permit holder overseeing the entire operation, and they own all of those virtual brands. So this particular model is acceptable in Georgia under the Georgia Food Code. So we look at this next example. If you could advance the slide, please, that'd be great. So in this one is a little bit different. It's kind of similar to the example number 2, but you may have one or more virtual brands that are sold from an existing kitchen under the same permit holder. So in this example, we've seen a independently standing restaurant where customers can come in and sit down and order. And in that same kitchen, that permit holder is also offering what they call virtual brands, where the customers in the dining room either could order from those menus, or they may only be sold online, where they could be ordered from a web platform or an app. But all of that is, again, still under the same control of that one permit holder, occurring in the same kitchen area. And that particular model is also within the food code for the state of Georgia. So this last example, you could advance the slide, that'd be great. So this last example is one that does not fit within the realm of what's allowed in the Georgia Food Code, where you have an existing permitted kitchen that's under one permit holder. And also within that kitchen space, there are other permit holders, maybe one or more, depending on how many virtual brands and depending on how big the kitchen is. But you may have different permit holders who are offering these virtual brands that belong to just them, but they want to operate and use the equipment that belongs to that existing permitted kitchen that's under a completely different permit holder. So that particular example is not allowed under the Georgia Food Code. And that particular model, this one on example 4, is one that I would venture to guess might be defined as a dark kitchen, because you kind of have an undercover operation going on within a permitted operation. So the virtual kitchen, to me, seems it would be more related to like example 2 and 3 that I showed earlier, whereas the ghost kitchen may be example number 1, where you have completely independent kitchens that the customers don't come in and sit down, but everything is ordered and prepared there and taken away by a third-party delivery company. So that's kind of my answer to your question, and I will turn it over to back to Tracy.
Thanks, Galen. So a follow-up question on that is, have you seen different ghost kitchen models or methods of operation? I know you gave some different examples, kind of how it would fit from a permitting perspective, but in terms of maybe shared kitchens or kind of how there might be different layouts within a kitchen, if there's maybe more than one brand or one permit holder there, have you seen anything like that?
Is that question for back to me?
That's for you, Galen.
Okay,
yep.
okay, great. So the only other sort of outstanding or oddball operation, I guess you could say, where ghost kitchen is would be viewed is a mobile setup. So we do have a particular company that operates in Georgia where they do have a base of operation where everything is prepared and loaded onto their trailers, and then the trailers are driven out to different locations around the metro area, and all of the ordering is done via an app. And so this helps them bring their products or their virtual brands closer to different people within different parts of the metro area. But it's mobile. So, daily they have to go back to their base of operation and service the unit and all of that. But the customers, don't realize, I guess, that their restaurant is closer to them and can move around in the city. So that's probably the only different or outlying model that I've seen that's slightly different than those 4 examples that I gave earlier.
Great. And we actually did have a question come in and I'm not sure if that answered it for her or not, but she did ask how this example differs from a mobile food unit or caterer. So it kind of sounds like it's just the difference between somebody coming to pick up the food here at the ghost kitchen versus it going out on a truck. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. So it is a mobile kitchen, and it was permitted as a mobile unit. But the only difference would be is that the customers don't come to the truck and order the food. They order it on an app, and a third-party delivery company picks it up and takes it to them.
Okay, perfect. All right. I know we've got some questions coming in. I'm going to hold off on those for right now as we move through some of these other ones because I think these might help answer some of the questions as well. So let's move on to Ashley. Ashley, can you please tell us what Chick-fil-A has been doing in the mysterious world of ghost kitchens?
Sure, Tracy. So Chick-fil-A has delved into the world of delivery kitchens. We do not currently have any virtual brands. So we only offer Chick-fil-A products in our delivery kitchens. But we've tried a couple different concepts where we own and have built out the facility and operate the facility under just the Chick-fil-A brand, where all food is offered via mobile app. Customers can order, they can come in and pick up, but they can't eat there at the facility. And then we also have delivery offered by third-party delivery services, and then also Chick-fil-A delivery. And then we've also partnered with other companies that own the property and own the building, and where we simply lease kitchen space within that facility and offer Chick-fil-A, again, just through a mobile, through online or through an app. And again, delivered by third-party delivery or Chick-fil-A team member delivery. So this picture is a driver pickup area for one of our shared locations. This was in Chicago area. So you can see we have a little Chick-fil-A pickup sign there. And there's a pizza concept in there that's doing the automated hot holding area where a customer types in their code number and they get their pizza right out of their little hot hold station. So this is an example of where drivers come in, and this is a third-party delivery only location. So drivers from DoorDash, Uber, Postmates, wherever come in and they pick up their order and take it out for the customer. So if you want to go to the next slide there, Tracy. So this is one of our facilities where we rent kitchen space. Again, this one's out in California. So this was before the facility opened. So you can kind of see what the base package looks like. This is a shared common hallway, and then all those little doors going out the hallway are kitchen spaces. So if you go to the next slide, this is the basic layout as a tenant that we were offered. 3-comp sink, hand wash sink, and on the opposite side is a hood. So everything else we came in and built out specifically for Chick-fil-A.
Wonderful. All right. And MJ, how has Brinker been able to leverage this remarkable new field of virtual brands?
All right, so thanks, Tracy. So we explored a number of the options that both Ashley and Galen went through, whether we're going to buy space, build space, lease, have a mobile option, something like that. But at the end of the day, what we kind of realized is we have all of these restaurants already in population centers, and the best way for us to leverage the assets or the kitchens that we already have is to put some what we call virtual brands that could be offered through the existing Chili's and Maggiano's locations. So we have about 1,250 Chili's locations throughout the country, about 53 Maggiano's. And so what we were able to do is as we went to launch It's Just Wings, first testing and then launch. Actually, today is the 1-year anniversary of It's Just Wings. that we launched last year during the pandemic. So when we went out to launch that, it was using the same kitchen, the same permit, and just kind of repurposing a portion of our to-go area so that the drivers could come and pick up the product. So if you can see here, this is the Chili's to-go area in a couple of our locations, and you can see there's some Chili's to go there, and there's some it's just wings to go as well, just depending on what the order is, what the driver's going to pick up. And if you go to the next slide. Whoop, one too many. There you go. So the way the assembly works is all of this is coming out of the same kitchen, and we for the final QA check off of what's going in the bag, that it uses a common station. You see we've got the Chili's to go bags on the left, it's just wings on the right, and so the same person, the same process is doing that final assembly. So kind of what this allowed us to do is a concept our finance team kind of called it sweat the asset. So we've already got this great asset, we've already got the people, we've already got the label, we've got the supply chains built. We just needed to add some different products, a few different ways of cooking, and we were able to grow It's Just Wings into what was now one of the top 200 food service brands in the country, basically within 1 year, and without having to invest in new buildings, new equipment, leases, things like that. So yes, it has been very successful for us, and to the point that some of our global franchisees around the world have seen the success. And so this is not just an American phenomenon; it's also going global in some places that make sense. And then just a little bit on, is it a virtual brand? Is it ghost? Is it dark? Ghost and dark kind of implies like it's on the down low or a speakeasy sort of thing. We never wanted to really go there. We've been transparent since the beginning that It's Just Wings is a Brinker brand. So we launched a website for the brand. You go into the About Us section, it talks about the development and how Brinker and the Chili's family has nurtured that. So never wanted it to be some secret that you don't know where it's coming from. It's another brand that's part of our family and an important part of our brand family at this point.
Awesome. Thanks, MJ. All right. So we that was kind of our intro into what we define as the ghost kitchens and anything that falls under that. I am at this point going to stop sharing my screen so we can just engage with our panel and move on to our next topic, which is around regulatory challenges. So I'm going to shoot this one over to Galen to start with, but I think this is something that everybody can answer because each of you have probably had some questions around this. So what are some of the regulatory challenges of ghost kitchens or virtual brands for the health departments?
Thanks, Tracy. So some of the regulatory challenges that we've seen are more in the design and the operational methods, if you will. From the standpoint of like the very first model that I gave the example for, there really would be no regulatory challenges there because everything is all independently owned. Each operator has their own kitchen space, all of their own equipment, and there's no issue. It's all independent restaurants. Where we have come into challenges is with the mobile model. That was one of the challenges that we faced because the concept for that particular company was they wanted to just sort of have those trailers there and leave them. And when you don't have a way to, fill up your fresh water and a place to dump it as we require for mobile units, we get into some, concerns with other agencies and dealing with zoning issues and things like that with the city. So that was one of our challenges. But I would say probably one of the most reoccurring challenges until we sit down and talk with the proposed business owner is they want to share certain aspects of the operation. So for example, they may all want to have independent kitchens, but perhaps they want to share a giant water heater system or water heating system, or they want to share a walk-in space, cooler space or freezer space, or they want to share a 3-compartment sink area. So the challenge with that is to, just first of all, let them know, that under the current rules and regulations in Georgia, that's not allowed. But at the same time, the reasoning behind that, because if there is ever an outbreak and you're looking at trying to do any kind of trace back, then the concern is, okay, all these people are in here who have different permits, are sharing the same equipment, then you have a mess. So just to kind of keep it simple and simple explanation of the concerns that we have, it's essentially for prevention of foodborne illness outbreak being, shared among many, if you will, and trying to protect that business owner. And once we explain it to them in that way, it's been, much easier to get them to come into compliance with the rules and regulations in Georgia. So I would say those are primarily the two biggest challenges that we frequently run into. And the other part of it too that goes along with that sharing aspect is we're seeing sometimes there are companies that want to come in that own the building and they want to be a part of the operation, but they're not preparing any of the food. So they're like renting space, or they may help advertise for the company. So it's like a third party company that's involved, and they want to have, a part of the operation, but they're not, we can't issue them a food service permit because they're not actually preparing any foods. So that's been a challenge as well. But from a safety standpoint, I would say from a consumer standpoint, the only thing that we've kind of run into issues with is trying to just make sure that if you have that virtual brand that you're advertising on the web, and if any of the products, the consumer advisory requirement would be needed for, just to make sure that that is located on that menu somewhere, as well as putting the actual physical address of where that food is being prepared. So that if a complaint is called, it looks like you may have 6 different restaurants operating from one address, but we still need to be able to tell when they go to look at the score online, because, you can pull up on our webpage and look at the scores for all the restaurants in Georgia. And they may want to check the score for this particular restaurant, but if there's no address linked with it, then that gets to be tricky. So we have to kind of just go back and verify that information. But other than that, we haven't really had any serious issues with the virtual.
So Galen, we did get a question about if you've ever encountered any virtual brands operating out of home kitchens. So has somebody thought they fell under the ghost kitchen category, but turned out to be more like a cottage food situation?
Yes, and particularly during COVID, I think that sort of amped it up. But, in that case, it would be treated just like any other illegal food service operation. And we have to meet with them, educate them, let them know, hey, if you want to do it, you got to go by the right steps and get permit.
Great. So Ashley, anything around, from a health department perspective, maybe when you're, confusion around licensing, when you were setting up some of the locations?
Yeah, so I would say the challenge for us, because we're a national brand, is just navigating all the different regulations in the different states. So, we've opened, multiple locations across the country, and every area has their own rules and regulations and things that they allow and things that they don't. So, which, of course, affects a lot of things. So design, the amount of space that we need, even down to helping us figure out, what sort of menu we want to offer. Can we offer the full menu? Do we have enough space to put in all the equipment, plus all the, sinks and the mop sinks and the storage and all that? So I would say those have been our biggest challenges. And then just, at Chick-fil-A, we try really hard to cross all the T's and dot all the I's before we get in there and start moving equipment in and changing walls around. And so just trying to really stay ahead of, how fast things can move, and just having a good understanding of just like the regulations across the country in these different locations where we're looking to install these facilities. And then also, especially with COVID, just understanding regulatory changes regarding delivery itself. So, any sort of regulations that might be put out there for delivery drivers. So even though the drivers aren't our employees, we're doing business with them. So we want to make sure that they're applying by all the correct regulations. And if they're required to have a delivery bag when they come pick up our food, we want to make sure that we're checking to see that they have that delivery bag. So, it's just a lot of things to keep track of and make sure that we're in compliance with all the different regulations.
Great. Yep. And MJ, any regulatory challenges you've run into with the virtual brands?
Not significantly. The biggest challenge has been just kind of a gap in communication and understanding, where the regulatory agency may not understand exactly what we are and what we're doing. They'll see that there's this brand pops up in DoorDash, and what is it? And they find out it's us, and hey, where are you doing this? And then it's more of a conversation of, oh no, it's you've already got the Chili's permitted or the Maggiano's. We didn't add any equipment. We cooked wings before. We're cooking wings now. We brought in a few other items. We're not doing any things that would require consumer advisories through these virtual brands. So it's more about just having that conversation and making sure they understand what we're doing and being transparent. And once we did that, it really became a non-issue.
Awesome. All right, one more question before we move into the next topic, and this one is back to Galen. Are most companies coming to you before launching these operations, or are you just kind of stumbling upon them as you're out doing your normal activities?
That's a great question. In the beginning, ghost kitchens, I would say, at least for in Georgia, I would say probably about 3 years ago was when we were first sort of introduced to the whole concept. And those, we didn't even realize until the person that was trying to operate them came to us. And when, they were trying to explain what they were doing, our eyes just sort of spun around in our head because we'd never heard of this. And it was just bizarre because it was one of those models that was not allowed. And so we were trying to, figure out, first of all, what you're doing, how you're doing it, how did you even get in here? How did the health department not see this? And so that's sort of what started it. And then gradually, the bigger operations where you would have the independent kitchens operating under one roof started coming in, and they actually reached out to us beforehand. And so that helped us with the process that started there. And more or less the virtual brands within the restaurants were one of those, like what MJ was describing, that we kind of stumbled across. So, but he's absolutely right. Once the conversation happened, there was no problem. There was no issue. It was just more of trying to figure out the process of what is going on. How did this menu show up? But other than that, I would say they've all been pretty much upfront coming to us with these big operations.
Good deal. All right, so let's move on to the next topic. We're getting lots of great questions. So there's been a few around the food safety and operations. So we'll go through kind of ours. We'll mingle in some of the ones that have come in, and then we'll catch some of them at the end if we miss anything. So I have lots of interest here. So all right, MJ, what are best practices for food defense, meaning securing the food in a delivery focused space? So you've got that place where they can just come and grab it. So, how do we keep from people messing around with stuff there?
So yeah, a couple of things. So first is when you're going to pick your delivery partner, make sure that you're doing that with somebody who is reputable, that has a process to vet the drivers that they're going to use. They're not generally considered employees, they're more contractors, but there still should be some vetting process for who they're going to bring into their system to allow them to transport food. And then also they have to have a system to trace like who picked up what order, where did they deliver it, how long did that happen, where did they go, so that if something were to happen, you could figure out exactly who it was. And the drivers knowing that could be somewhat of a deterrent for them. So that's kind of the first piece, is just knowing who you're using, knowing that they vet their delivery drivers and have a way to trace. And the second obvious answer is some sort of tamper evident packaging. None of that is going to be perfect. You can't have something that's really hard for the consumer to get into, but it should have some way of letting them know that, hey, this has been open, somebody's gotten into your fries or whatever that is. And that's kind of a balance between how secure do you make it, how evident do you make it, and how is it easy for the operators, and then a good experience for the consumer. So it's really working with your packaging design folks to find that right balance.
Okay, great. Ashley, can you discuss some of the food safety risks when equipment is shared by 2 or more operations? How do these constraints impact services?
So we at Chick-fil-A have worked really diligently to not share equipment as much as possible. So in our kitchen space, of course, we don't share our kitchen space with anyone else. So only Chick-fil-A team members, Chick-fil-A products are in our kitchen space. But we have tried at a couple of our concepts to share refrigeration, like share a walk-in cooler, share a walk-in freezer, and share some dry storage. And we've tried some different things, just definitely keeping an eye on cross-contamination, like really trying to avoid any risk with that. So we've implemented locked shelving, like shelving systems that close and lock so that no one can get inside of it and tamper with anything. Also putting up like plexiglass shields between our storage and other concept storage so that we don't have any splash or spillage from any other products. But for the most part, we really have tried to just not share space as much as possible. And when we get into a facility where that's really our only option, we're just exploring and trying out as many different safety measures as we can possibly have.
Great. And another question for you. What factors should be considered when equipment is placed in small kitchens or spaces?
So that's been a fun part of this role that I've taken on, is like putting together a puzzle. So looking at the square footage and then working with the design team to really figure out, okay, what kind of equipment can we get in here? And then what kind of menu can we serve? So it's really just taking into account, where the plumbing is, where the hood is, and then just what are our options for equipment. So like we have different size 3 comp sinks, we have a 4 comp sink, we have dishwashers. So just deciding, what's the safest, type of equipment that we need and what can fit in there. And then of course, what are the regulatory requirements? So some locations, like in Georgia, we have to have, like each kitchen has to have its own hot water heater and has to have its own mop sink. So, we have to make sure that those go in that space. So if it's at the cost of another fryer or, a bigger salad prep table, well, then that's the trade-off that you have to account for.
Great. All right. MJ, how do you manage or stay focused on food safety with multiple brands coming out of the same kitchen? It's got to be pretty busy in there, and having
we like
different
it to be
types
busy.
of food.
That means we're making sales. So so it's really all about designing the practices and the processes in that support food safety. So if you can design a process that is efficient and repeatable and still meets the food safety standards, then you're going to have less people that are going to waver and go and do something that is not as food safe. In general, nobody's going to just show up to work and say, I'm going to go to work and I'm going to violate food safety practices today. They're going to do it when they have to take shortcuts. So our ops team, our quality assurance team works with some industrial engineers to look at the flow, how the food moves through. Because if we can design something that is efficient, if the most efficient way to do something is a food safe way, then you're going to have less people wandering off into creative ways to try to be more efficient.
Great, great. So here's kind of an additional question to that, MJ, and I think this is for you since it throws in the virtual brand, but I think it maybe could be for anybody. How does the virtual brand concept account for traceability? So they're saying, for example, if a customer only orders from an online platform, which most don't show the address, and God forbid reported an illness, how would regulating bodies know it's Just Wings is connected to Chili's?
Okay, let me think through that. So I know that the virtual brands that we use, they will maintain their own complaint system, so that at the time we launched It's Just Wings a year ago, it was exclusively through DoorDash, and we had they had a system. So if you had an issue, it would report to them, and then we got direct reports of that from them, just as if it would somebody calling the Chili's 1-800 number or something like that. So I know that we could see that, but that's a good point, that if you order through a DoorDash of a brand that you don't know where it is, how would they reach out to somebody directly on Galen's team to report it to the health department as opposed to just to us? That may be kind of a gap.
Well, I think
Galen,
I can
you may
add
want
a
to weigh in on that
little.
as well.
Yeah, I can add a little
Or
there
Anish.
too. Yeah, I think it's important too for the regulating body to understand that when we're working with third-party delivery companies, they are technically the client. So the order, when the order gets picked up, so like say you have a DoorDash order, when the DoorDash driver comes in and picks up the order, the responsibility from the QSR or from the business, the restaurant that made that food ends there, because that's the customer. That's who we made the sale to. And then the third party delivery company, their customer then is the end user. So there is a little bit of a nuance there, and trying to understand that as the customer, but then also, on the back end, how that looks can be a little tricky. But I also think that's something that isn't really common knowledge out there in the permitting world.
Okay.
And they also have software systems that track all of that. So like they can track what time an order came in, they can track what time they have timestamps for all of that, of when the driver came and picked up the order, and then what time the order was dropped off at the customer. So the third-party delivery companies keep track of all of that, and we can go back in and look at that, but it's really their responsibility for any sort of customer complaints or issues. And if it did come back to be like a food safety issue, then of course, we would work with them. But the whole, like, who does the customer complain to? It's really to the third-party delivery company, if that makes sense.
Yep. Absolutely. Galen, did you have anything you wanted to add to that?
Yeah, no, I just kind of wanted to tack on to what Ashley and NJ were saying, that that is a challenge, and that was one of the things I mentioned a little earlier. But what we try to do is at least train our inspectors when they get plan reviews in, or if they become aware of a virtual brand, to go to that website then and check to see, is there information on that, and to let that person know, the applicant know, when they're constructing and building these operations or implementing these operations, that these are some of the things that would need to be put on that web page, that traceability aspect. So as we have become aware of that concern, it sounds like all of us are sort of emerging through this process together, as you guys on the industry side come up with new ideas. Then we get questions, and it's like, oh, well, we didn't even think about that either. So I think having conversation and open dialogue between both, on a consistent basis with any of these new concepts like this is going to help both of us out tremendously so that we can help you all do, what you're trying to do and also protect the public's health at the same time.
Great. All right. So we do have quite a few questions that have come around kind of the third party delivery companies. So let's just touch on that. And then we still have a couple more topics that we want to talk about and still be able to take a few questions in at the end. So we're at, I think, about the 15-minute mark here. So, okay, so let's start with Ashley. So what are some of the considerations to take into account when partnering with third-party delivery companies?
Oh, that's a good question. So at Chick-fil-A, we have agreements with, I guess it's basically just DoorDash and Uber Eats now, because Uber has, they bought out Postmates, who was another national partner that we were working with. And then we have instructed all of our franchisee locations to not partner with anyone else. So no local or unknown per se third-party delivery companies. We only work with those national partners that we have national agreements with. And then, we were able, of course, to like put in our agreements with them certain requirements that we have. So, and I can't really go into all the specifics around that, but we have worked really hard to vet who we partner with so that we're ensuring that we're delivering a safe and like high quality product to our customers.
Fantastic. All right. Anything you wanted to add there, MJ?
Not really. I think Ashley really hit it. It's knowing who you're going into business with, having the right relationship and the right language in the agreements. I'm not the expert on exactly how those agreements are necessarily arranged, but you the big guys, the usual players, then there's going to be some comfort level that you're doing business with somebody that wants to protect their business as much as we want to protect ours.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I think I saw a question earlier too about like tamper evident labels. And I know MJ touched on that too, but and I'm sure MJ's in the same boat as we are. I don't want to put words in your mouth, MJ, but as far as protecting the food products before they go out the door is very much a part of the work that we do here at Chick-fil-A, and just it's really top of mind. So putting tamper evident seals on our bags. We're introducing beverage seals for our drinks, and just like MJ said, working with packaging to make sure that food is going out and staying safe in that delivery process.
Awesome, thanks. And then just real quick, Galen, a question for you. Have you received delivery specific complaints, and how do you address those types of complaints, knowing that food came from one place, deliveries happening from a different company? Is that something that you guys really do much with?
No, that is a good question, because when the third-party delivery companies first started, we were getting complaints left and right. And so I was very happy to hear Ashley sort of give that overview of, exactly what it is that third-party delivery company is the end consumer. And it would be, no different than me saying, hiring you, Tracy. I want to pay you a couple of bucks to run down the street and get me some food and bring it back to me. And so, essentially that's what they're doing. So it took a while for, I think, customers to sort of understand that. And, fortunately, we have a really good working relationship with our Georgia Restaurant Association. And so through conversations with them, with consumers, and even restaurants, just trying to sort of all get on the same page with the understanding of how these things operate was a tremendous help. But, it's always, hard to tell people, well, there's nothing really we can do about it, because, that's always hard to hear. They don't ever want to hear the health department say that, but in reality, there isn't a whole lot we could do. But I think over time, it's gotten much better. We haven't gotten, near the amount of complaints. And I think both with what MJ and Ashley have stated is that when the restaurants sort of kind of took that initiative and put that demand on those companies to say, hey, we're not going to hire you unless you put tamper evidence seals on there. These are our expectations for you. I think that really turned the tables, to sort of help curb that concern. But we haven't gotten much complaints or many complaints in a while on those.
Awesome. All right. Okay. So we still have lots of questions. Probably won't get to all of them today. We'll try to get to what we can, and then we'll kind of capture them and see if we can't help answer them later on. We have had some food delivery webinars out there, so definitely we can direct you to some of that as well, because it sounds like the third-party delivery thing is kind of great interest here. All right. Next topic, COVID. MJ, how did the pandemic impact your rollout of your virtual brands?
So I would say, if anything, it actually accelerated it. So probably a full year before the pandemic, we had started doing lots of research, discovering which model we would want to use. We had already had the It's Just Wings brand in test for 3 or 4 months before the start of the pandemic. We were able to maintain that. Obviously, as restaurants shut down, and then or dining room shut down, to go never really did. But we saw so much more business coming out the side door and to go. The virtual brands just seemed a natural way to leverage the situation that we were in and grow the sales that we had. So yeah, and it actually, 1 year ago today, we were still in the middle of the pandemic, and we went nationwide with It's Just Wings. So yeah, it took a lot of work, took a lot of challenge, because most of us were still working remotely. We had restrictions on how and where we could travel, things like that. But I would say, if anything, it accelerated the decision. It just meant we had to double down and figure out exactly how we could pull this off nationwide.
Awesome. And, looking forward, do you believe that virtual brands are just a fad, or do you think they're here to stay?
So until somebody comes up with something that's more convenient than me clicking a button on my phone and having the food that I want show up at my house, I think that virtual brands are going to be here to stay. And I don't know how you're really going to get more convenient than that. You do pay for convenience. So the only real threat I see is the cost model. Free delivery isn't really free. Somebody's paying for that, even if it's coming out of marketing funds, and drivers got to get tipped, and there's service fees for the delivery companies themselves. So, they've just got to keep tight with the cost model on the delivery side. But the virtual brand, it's a great way to get some variety into the marketplace in in food service, so we can get new brands launched with somewhat minimal capital investment. So yeah, lots of excitement. People like variety, and they certainly like convenience. So I don't think they're going anywhere.
Great. All right. So we're going to move into just a brief Q&A, since it looks like we've only got about 6 minutes left, but still plenty of questions to go through. So I did see one that I really liked, and it was, I think this one might be for Ashley. Let me find it again. And it was around kind of like, why not go to the regular restaurant to get the food? why have them pick them up at a ghost kitchen area versus getting it from a regular restaurant? I know that came up in my mind too when we were first talking.
Yeah, well, there's different strategies. So it depends on, of course, how close is a restaurant, a sit-down Chick-fil-A to you versus a delivery kitchen. I think, as most people know, Chick-fil-A is, of course, we're a national brand, but we only have 2,600 restaurants across the country. So we have a lot of areas that do not have a Chick-fil-A, or do not have a Chick-fil-A anywhere nearby. So some of the delivery only locations, which you would refer to as a ghost kitchen or a dark kitchen, the customer doesn't realize that it's a delivery only kitchen. So when they go to look if they're ordering, especially if they're ordering from a third-party platform, it just shows up as Chick-fil-A. So they don't know where exactly that Chick-fil-A is located at. And if it is in an area where there's multiple restaurants, they might not know which restaurant it's coming from. So, but there is an option, like on Google, to be able to look to see what services that restaurant offers. So it may say delivery only. But in the pandemic, a lot of the restaurants were delivery only because we closed all of our dining rooms. So it's still just takes a little bit of investigation sometimes by the customer to figure out, which location their food is coming from. But a lot of times it's just the convenience factor, like MJ said. People, you think it's the middle of winter, it's cold outside, they would rather pay that little extra fee to have their food delivered to them than them to get in their car and come over to the restaurant and pick it up just to turn around and take it back home. Or they don't want to sit inside the restaurant and eat. So this is just a convenience concept for our customers too, to meet them where they're at, to let them decide how and when and where they want to eat their Chick-fil-A. So it's really, just about offering another option for the customer.
Great. Here, I've got a good question for Galen here, which I hadn't thought about. So this is good. So have you found retail food service establishments other than restaurants, so grocery stores, bakeries, opening ghost kitchen type establishments or businesses?
That's a really good question. And I will go ahead and throw out this disclaimer. In Georgia, where we, along with the Georgia Department of Agriculture, are the two sister agencies that regulate retail food service operations. The Department of Public Health oversees the restaurants, which we would call food service establishments. The Georgia Department of Agriculture oversees the food sales establishments. So your grocery stores, your convenience stores, and things like that. So off the top of my head and to the best of my knowledge, I am not aware of that. However, I could be speaking completely out of turn on that. I really would not be able to say 100% that, they're operating that way.
Okay. Awesome. And then I would say one last quick question, because I saw a couple of them pop up. Lots on time temperature, monitoring and controlling the time temperature while it's waiting for delivery pickup or once it goes out. MJ or Ashley, anything there real quick that you wanted to add?
Look, the food's not going to be prepared until the customer places the order. So your clock is not really going to start until you have all that food that comes together. And then I believe the assumption is that anything that we're putting out there is going to be consumed within 4 hours, whether it's something that's being picked up by a delivery driver, or just like if we're giving food to you, you come to our restaurant to pick it up. The assumption is that you're going to consume it or put it under temperature control within 4 hours to keep it safe.
Perfect. All right. Well, I want to thank our fantastic panelists today, our panel today, for joining us. I think there's still tons of questions out there, so I think there's still a lot to discuss around ghost kitchens. So maybe we can have a 2.0 at some point in time with this to follow up on this. We'll try to capture some of these questions, maybe answer them later on. Do want to remind our participants that, again, hosted by NEHA and the NEHA Business and Industry Affiliate, we are always looking to expand our membership and add additional board members. We're actually going to have elections this year on July 12th. So if you want to join us for our meeting or any of our other activities, we'd love to tell you a little bit more about ourselves, and maybe you can become a part of our team. So, all right. Well, again, thank you everybody for joining us. We've got plenty of other webinars that you can watch the recording for, and it's on our website. And if you are interested in just participating in any webinars or you want to see any other kind of topics, definitely let us know, and just have a spooktacular day. Bye, everybody.